wherever you're going to be investing, there's going to be a different tempo to it. Yeah. Right. And it's not about, trying to, enforce my tempo into a culture, but trying to work with the culture and
sometimes a lower tempo actually leads to a more stabilized investment base. I mean, I'm just saying, like if in LA, we like to be quick, we like to turn things over. We have properties that we're turning over every 3 to 5 years. But if you're in some of the slower, smaller neighborhoods, they don't turn over as quickly. It helps stabilize the neighborhoods when things are going up and down. People are less likely to be reactive. I mean, it is in those areas where actually they just kind of go, yeah, we're going to step back and it actually maybe leads to less forced appreciation, but it also leads to less instability. And sometimes. I am Christina Suter, and this is the Real Estate Breakthrough Show, where we talk about the reality of real estate, the mindset you need in order to face the reality of what it is, and tips and tricks to get you moving forward in investing. I am your host, Christina Suter. So again, I have an unusual show today. I need to let you know, this is not focused on what is Deborah Razo's primary version of financial freedom, but this is focused on something that I feel like you need to know as a topic, which is how do us as U.S. investors invest in a territory that is a U.S. territory, but is not on the mainland. It is Puerto Rico. Deborah Razo, a good friend of mine, a longtime associate inside of the real estate field. I have tapped her to educate you guys today and share with you a little bit of the learning curve that she went through, and the research that she's come up with was, why is this a good idea? Because she is actively engaged in that. And I went, you know what? We just need to be educated, Deborah. I love you, and I like your I like your due diligence, and I trust you. I know you like you and trust you, but I need you to educate me. I need you to educate me on why this is good. What is it that drew you there? Why do we as mainland investors want to be invested in this? What's going to be our return? And I know, Deborah, I know you well, you're perfectly capable of answering that question. So before I let you talk, I'm going to read a quick bio. All right. So, and I need to find the bio. Let us see, bio here. So Deborah, I love the opening. Always an independent spirit, because she is. Started her first business in 1990 after owning and partnering in several successful small businesses. She realized that her path to financial freedom was through real estate investing. In addition to her business degree and graduate work at UCLA's Anderson School of Management, Deborah expanded her investing education in 2011 with a series of intensive workshops, the Robert Kiyosaki workshops, Vikstad Advisors, and the Real Estate Radio Guys. It was a natural transition for her to shift gears from her 20-year design firm to her booming rehab business in Southern California, with her first housing flip netting nearly $100,000 in profit. Deborah has a flair for fixing and flipping properties, for purchasing, rehabbing, marketing, and sales process, as well as the tools and techniques for locating properties, analyzing market values, and making timely decisions. She has moved beyond that, guys. She is now an expert in renovation and team management. And 2 years ago, she moved from rehabbing into development itself. So after only 7 years, she now controls over $5 million in real estate, has done several more million in deals. And she's currently focusing her energy on partnering in investing and seeking financial freedom. Of course she is. She's also the founder of the WREN Women's Real Estate Network. And as well, she's recently been named Woman to Watch by the national publication Think Realty, and was selected to be on the cover of March of 2020. Now, Deborah, welcome to the show.
Thank you, Christina. I'm not sure you should read that. I'm exhausted now.
I know. See, that's why I was like, girl, there's just so much that you've done, and there is so much to share that it's like, I am just going to try to bottom line it. But the fact is, you are Deborah.
Oh, yeah.
You are Deborah.
Oh my gosh, look at that.
I told you. I love it. I love it. So for those of you watching on the podcast, I'm just showing Deborah Razo's website. And it's a great picture of you, Deborah. You look lovely and gorgeous, of course. And it's very bright. And it has many of her pictures. Some of those pictures are your WREN members, right? People who have been
WREN members and projects.
But today, I'm afraid, Deborah, I am going to have you focused on Puerto Rico. Talk to us, girl. Yeah. Why the heck would a mainlander like me, who I've bought in Hawaii. I have bought in Virginia. I have bought in Knoxville, Tennessee. I've even bought in Portland, Oregon. I have gone to both sides of the United States and almost top to bottom, but I've never done off the continent itself beyond Hawaii. So talk to me about why I would be able to trust it as an investment.
Right. So it's really interesting. And I'm just going to back up for anybody who's a new investor here to understand something that I learned early on. I live in Los Angeles, and the reason I got into real estate was for the cash flow. I had a car accident several years ago. I was laid up for a year. I went through my savings, and I realized, if I had had that passive income, it wouldn't have damaged me so much. And I also realized life was short, and I really wanted to travel and do all kinds of things. So, everything pointed at passive income for me. But I had to actually have active income to generate the passive income so that I could have the life that I wanted. Now, why did I say that? Because I was trying to figure out who I was as an investor early on. And I thought, like many investors think, I thought, okay, I'll get a rental very close to me so I can drive by it, so that I can keep my eyes on it. And the fact of the matter is, in Los Angeles, very hard to cash flow things. I can't make the return. Now, could I make money as a flipper or as a developer? Yes, I can definitely make money that way, but I can't make a lot of money as a landlord. Right. And I was at a real estate club meeting. And if any of you have not attended real estate club meetings, you have to attend the real estate club meetings. Yeah. They're amazing. You learn things every time you go. You meet investors, go to one that has active investors, right? Find those. And you meet investors and what they're doing. Well, I got put in a group of investors, and one of them I didn't have any investments at that time. One of them had an investment close by. One of them had an investment out of state. One of them had an investment out of country. And I remember driving home that night and thinking to myself, oh my gosh, how do these people do it? Right? Like, I don't know how they do that, something like that. And then there was like, a moment of clarity where I thought, this is all about risk tolerance.
Yeah, it is.
It's all about risk tolerance.
100%.
For me to get even a property that's outside the state that's going to cash flow, so my money's going to be working harder for me, it's about risk tolerance. So then I had to kind of do a self-evaluation and say, what do I need to not have the risk feel as risky as it feels right now? Right? Well, I needed to visit the place. I needed to make relationships with the people that I was going to do business with. I needed, there was I felt like I needed a checklist of things, right? And I learned that, and I actually started buying single family homes in Memphis, Tennessee, and then learning how to manage from a distance, learning how to run a team from a distance. Like, I could run a team close because I could see them, and, I could see their works and everything. So I had to learn to do that from a distance. And, I jokingly call that giving good phone. I had to learn to connect people on the phone.
Right. Yep.
Building relationship on a phone. A lot of people know now that we've been through COVID, building relationship through Zoom. You have to learn a way of building relationship, right? Because it's in that relationship that you understand how to mitigate problems that are going to come up. Right? They know who you are as an investor. I know who they are as somebody who's taking care of my property, or depending on whatever it is they're doing. And you have a level of expectation, and you have a relationship to grow on. Now, I'm going to that because I'm going to say, so it opened up a lot more territory for me to be able to invest in. And up until a couple of years ago, I stayed in the continental United States.
Right.
I realized my dollar worked harder for me outside of California when I was looking at it coming back to me. So that was kind of my first realization of that. And then, I hang out with different investors, and one of my close investor friends moved to Puerto Rico a few years ago. And I like to travel. And so when any of my friends move to exotic places, I'm like, I'll come visit. So to be honest with you, it was really not about looking at the real estate at the It was about just visiting an exotic island in the Caribbean.
I ended up buying, several units in Hawaii the same way. I was visiting Hawaii to visit my boyfriend at the time. His mother wanted to live there, and we're like, wow, look at this.
Right. And then you're like, hey, if I did something here, I could come here more regularly, right? But honestly, I wasn't really going into it that way. But what ended up happening is I was not only hearing from her, but I was hearing from several other people who are either moving to the island or investing in the island. And I thought to myself, well, what's going on here, right? Luckily, the woman that I know, she actually started the first real estate club in Puerto Rico called Rico. I love that name.
Rico, that's great.
Rico. And
that makes sense.
I went to visit. She had a meeting. We went around the island. She was showing me what was happening. And as an investor, my ears really perked up. The returns that she was getting, the way the government is incentivizing people and investors, in particular real estate investors, to go there, I was really curious. And I ended up making a lot of contacts, and with those contacts, following up on those contacts and really finding out more about the numbers that they were talking about, finding out how they were getting their tax incentives, finding out more and more. So, and there was a certain amount of comfort there. And I'll tell you where the comforts came from. The comforts came from, it's on the US currency. I don't need a passport to travel there, right? Yeah. It has Home Depot and IKEA, which are two of my staples.
Yes, Home Depot and IKEA would be staples for real estate investors. Yes, especially a flipper, right? And a developer like you are.
Right. So it has those items, So there were some familiarities there that I was happy with. The court systems run similarly to systems in the US. The banking system is different. There are no US banks in Puerto Rico. There are only Puerto Rican banks. So it's a little different in the banking system. And then, the people are different. And I was told, it's a Puerto Rican environment. It's very, despacio, like slow, right? Like the famous song comes from Puerto Rico, right? And I thought, what? I've also invested in Memphis, and I've also run a crew here in LA. I'm very quick and timely person. When I went to Memphis, I had to slow my roll.
Yes. Same when I was doing development in Hawaii. Totally okay, the surf's high today. I've just lost half my construction crew. Like, what the pup?
Right. So you realize it's wherever you're going to be investing, there's going to be a different tempo to it, right? And it's not about trying to enforce my tempo into a culture, but trying to work with the culture and
sometimes a lower tempo actually leads to a more stabilized investment base. I'm just saying, if in LA, we like to be quick, we like to turn things over. We have properties that we're turning over every 3 to 5 years. But if you're in some of the slower, smaller neighborhoods, they don't turn over as quickly. It helps stabilize the neighborhoods. When things are going up and down, people are less likely to be reactive. It is in those areas where actually they just kind of go, we're going to step back, and and it actually maybe leads to less forced appreciation, but it also leads to less instability. And sometimes,
yes, and there is a variety. There's areas of the island. San Juan is the main area of the island. It's where the international airport is. It's what most built up part of the island. Old San Juan, which is just right next to San Juan, is the oldest part of the island, and those areas have a lot more stability, especially when it comes to utilities like electricity and water, than some of the other parts of the island. Some of the other parts of the island have electricity grids that come in and out sometimes. And especially now, we just had a hurricane come through, and although a lot of San Juan is back up and running, there's a lot of other parts of the island that are still experiencing a lot of instability, right? And you've got to know that going in, and be prepared for that. So anyway, I was exposed to people and why they were coming to the island, and also the kind of deals they were getting, also the kind of government incentives that were being offered.
Go a
And
little deeper into the government incentives in particular, because I think that's part of what's made the mainland US investments pick up is through these government incentives. So
right. I'll just walk you through it, at a high level. I'll just walk you through some of it at a high level. There is a government incentive for people who are moving there, and their US tax burden is any less than 3% when you live in Puerto Rico.
Okay.
So what was that doing? That was drawing the ultra wealthy, I'll be honest with you, because anybody who makes millions and millions, or maybe even billions, wants to live and have a resident in Puerto Rico and be there more than half the year, because then their tax burden is definitely under 3%, right? So there's a part of the island that caters to these people who have come under this particular act, become residents of Puerto Rico, and are paying less. Now, what does that do to an island? Well, it's both positive and negative. In some ways, it segregates the island because they're not natives, right? They're not living like the natives, and yet in some ways, they're also bringing a lot of money. So with them moving to the island, they're bringing a lot more businesses to the island. So the places where they've moved to, which is pretty much kind of a couple different areas, those places are really being built up with restaurants, with services, right? With all kinds of things that, all these people are using, right? So there's that. Now, in that respect, it's kind of changing the island because, you've got all these people who are very wealthy, and usually they've owned their own businesses. So you've got an entrepreneurial spirit there, right? And entrepreneurs don't really sit idle much, even on tropical islands.
no, we don't. We really don't. Yeah.
So they look around them and go, oh, I can invest there. I can put a restaurant there. I could do this. I could do that, right? So there's a momentum of building, of swelling, just from the island itself. For investors, especially for real estate investors, there's a variety of different ways that you can take advantage of some of the tax incentives there. Puerto Rico has its own tax incentives. You can get into these different programs, and for instance, I'll tell you something I know personally. We bought a small multifamily, and we're making it into a bed and breakfast. Well, there's a tax incentive that goes with that. And it says, if you get our approval on the front end, you have to step through the hoops. Don't get me wrong, but if you get our approval and you follow this process, then, we will give you back a certain amount of money in tax credits. So it looks, and this is where the incentive really perked my ears up. And it was like 40% of your purchase price, your rehab costs, and your first year operating expenses. 40%. Right?
I mean, that's an amazing amount of chattel or write-off in the very first beginning of a year of your investment. I mean, you're sheltering so much.
It doesn't come right at the beginning. So, there is a process that has to happen.
Okay, that's good to know.
That happen. So but I'm just going to say this, we already are cash flowing without the tax write-offs.
Right.
We're already cash flowing without the tax write-offs. So I have a project, and for round numbers, I'm just going to say with purchase price and rehab costs, it's about $1 million project. First year of operating expenses, let's just say it's 100,000. So we're at 1.1, or let's just say $1 million, just for easy math, right? Okay. Well, we're in this program, and years 3, 4, and 5, we'll get the $400,000 back in even distributions.
Okay, sounds great.
With a third in tax credits. Now, these tax credits are Puerto Rican tax credits. Okay. So what am I going to do? I'm a US based. I don't have a lot of Puerto Rican income, so I don't need a Puerto Rican tax credit. But there is a market for those that want the Puerto Rican tax credits. Hence that whole set of ultra wealthy.
Okay.
Their 3% is still not wanting to get it down. Like, when is a dollar not a dollar? Well, when you only have to pay 93 cents for one. That's when a dollar's not a dollar, right? So I can take these tax credits and I can sell them. Okay. In fact, one of my partners has already had his tax credits, and he got 93 cents on the dollar. I mean,
Okay.
so even if I estimate 87 cents on the dollar,
Right.
okay, so that's 87 cents of my 400,000. Hello, still great.
But it also shelters all the income in Puerto Rico. It shelters all the income, so there's no tax in Puerto Rico before it hits you as a US citizen.
Right.
As well, right? So the actual investment itself goes, yeah, no, we don't realize any tax this year, so now we have more to distribute to you, our investors.
Right. So it's like it's a great situation. And this is just one of the programs. Like they have other programs that do more large commercial things. They have a program that is if you want to change things to condo hotels, they have programs. They have a bunch of different types of programs. In fact, it'd probably be best if you distribute that in Invest Puerto Rico link too.
Okay, hold on. Yes. So we're going to put this up on the screen.
So this is a link that it's a website to go to. Invest Puerto Rico is a government sponsored agency to help investors understand some of the tax benefits and policies, as well as a bunch of other things about Puerto Rico. And so you could find out about moving to Puerto Rico and how that works, because there's processes to everything. You could find out about some of the different tax incentive programs that they have for people who are, looking to do real estate investing. Their mission is to also bring private sector assets. They want to bring businesses to Puerto Rico. Now, I don't know if you know this, and for those of you that aren't familiar with Puerto Rico, and I didn't know this before I went there, Puerto Rico has been known in the past to be America's medicine cabinet. So all of the big Pfizer and Moderna and all the big medical suppliers have big industrial plants there and actually make the medicine. And then it's brought. So there is a huge industrial centers there that are already working manufacturing companies, and they're wanting to bring more variety to Puerto Rico in the sense of businesses, as well as in the sense of science, in the sense of bringing more skilled laborers, and offering more skilled labor positions to the people that are already there. So Invest Puerto Rico talks about that as well, right? So there's
so the actual website is literally invest investpr.org.
Yes.
So it's very easy to get to. So it's invest PR for Puerto Rico.org.
And it's a good website to get a high level view of some of the things that are going on there and opportunities that are going on for you as a real estate investor, or maybe you're a business. I mean, think about it. If you moved your business to Puerto Rico, then your business would only be paying 3%, right?
Well,
so there's some advantages.
Now it kind of starts to answer my other questions. We did a lot on government. Maybe you have more there, and I kind of hijacked you, but it also like, well, what are the major industries there that support it as a freestanding economy? I mean, it is an island, but it's also quite sizable. So, but there are, like you just said, there's medical there. I know there's agricultural there, but it looks like there's some other things there as well.
Well, and this is, one of the things that has been projected. I don't know. I know you've been to Hawaii, and I've been to Hawaii. And for anybody out there who's been to Hawaii, knows that Hawaii is a fine honed tourist machine. Right?
It is. It's a fine honed tourist machine.
Right.
It's all the things as well.
Yeah.
Having been there and invested there, it's other things as well. But it is definitely.
I look at Puerto Rico and I think, oh, this is Hawaii before that happened. Puerto Rico has beautiful beaches. It's warm water like Hawaii. It's got a natural rainforest. It's got bioluminescent bays. I don't know if you know what that is, but you can see the bios at night in the
washing in the waves back and forth, like literally lights up. Yeah.
You go out and kayak in them, and it's very cool. It has zip lining. It has hills. It has coffee growers in the hills, and they produce coffee. But the point is, it is not a well-honed tourist machine. To grow that.
Right.
And I'm a believer that it is going to grow that, You know, a lot of the East Coast already visits Puerto Rico in, you know, in the off seasons. It's, you know, it's the same. West Coast goes to Hawaii during Christmas, right? And East Coast goes to Puerto Rico, right? So it is, I think that's an industry that they're looking to develop. And I think that's an industry that has a lot of growth opportunity in it.
And I think people underestimate the size of Puerto Rico. I mean, you know, if you, again, go to the investpr.org, you know, you start to see pictures of, you know, downtown, and it's actually, you know, maybe not quite as large as Honolulu, but Honolulu used to look this way, right? With multi-story buildings of 50, 60 stories tall and very intense. I mean, some of the key factors they seem to have there is technology, financing, creative industries, bioscience, manufacturing, agricultural, of course, and energy. I mean, those are multiple industries that are feeding that area. So it's not like, gee, it's not just tourism, yes, which feeds the basis of the people that are living there, but there actually is some very strong industries, like you talked about with the bioscience, that is feeding it as a freestanding economy inside of it unto itself. So it really does have a need for residential housing. It really does have a need for, you know, being able to have the school system. And you even mentioned it's an opportunity zone.
Oh my gosh, I haven't even talked about that.
You haven't. That's why I'm laying it out. It is an opportunity zone as well.
Okay, so
it is part of the United States.
We've got levels of incentives, right? So we've got, you want to move there, great. You want to invest in real estate there, you can go through one of these tax incentive programs. Let's talk about opportunity zones, right? Opportunity zones were established by the government because they wanted to stimulate environments in our cities that might be a little more depressed, that, you know, you want to have people investing in areas that, you know, maybe investors would normally overlook, but if you give them a special tax incentive, then they can, like, you know, help rebuild that area, right? So for Los Angeles, for example, it might be an area more towards Compton, you know, for other cities, you know, it's in an area where most investors might back away from, right? But with the tax incentives, and let me just tell you about those tax incentives, investing in an opportunity zone is great for anybody who has capital gains, which, considering the amount of money made in real estate in these past few years, if you've sold anything, you have capital gains.
Capital gains. Yeah, pretty much. Yeah.
Now, your choices are: I 1031 exchange them, I opportunity zone them, or I pay the government. I mean, that's pretty much your choices, right?
Yeah, that's your choices. Yeah.
I think a lot of people don't know about opportunity zones and how to invest in them. When you invest in an opportunity zone, your tax burden is deferred until later times, and it's done over time. Your commitment to that project is usually at least 10 years. But at the end of that 10-year time, your basis readjusts and you are able to get your money out tax-free. Now, let me just give you an example of what I'm talking about, because it's kind of vague, right? So say I've invested in something and it is $1 million today, right? And 10 years down the line, that investment is worth 10 million, and we sell it at 10 million. My basis, instead of taking $1 million and being 10 million and me having to pay capital gains on the 9 million,
9 million. Yeah.
My basis adjusts to 10, and you're able to take the money out tax-free.
Right, because you roll in, you have to pay taxes on what you roll in. Eventually, even that is protected and stair-stepped out, but it's the basis within the growth of the opportunity zone project itself. You don't get taxed on that. I mean, that's
so, and you know, anybody who also,
I mean, it's more complicated than that. Just for those of you who are listening who are experts in the opportunity zone, yes, it is more complicated than that. We acknowledge that, but these are the core tenets that we really need to understand.
There's all kinds of compliance along the way.
All kinds of compliance that needs to be.
And that's why I've partnered with people like OZ Works and OZ Pros, who are, OZ means opportunity zone, who are organizations that help people gain the knowledge that they need to go into opportunity zones, whether you create your own fund and you invest by yourself, or whether you participate in somebody else's fund. Now, here's the kicker, right? Puerto Rico, 97% of Puerto Rico has been declared opportunity zone.
I know, 97%. I've been waiting for you to get to that number. 97% of Puerto Rico, and I think it again, I mean, I showed the picture of what downtown Puerto Rico, San Juan looks like. This is not a backwaters, town or backwaters country that doesn't have well-developed industry and a centralized government and a centralized city structure with industries within it that are actually relatively and surprisingly sophisticated, like you talked about with biotech. It's just, we don't know about it.
Right. And there is some hit and miss. Well, okay, let me just say.
Good. Keep it honest.
Yeah. So 97%, but I'm going to tell you, there is nowhere else in the continental US where you can get opportunity zone property that's beachfront.
That's yes, just mentioning, by the way, that because it's 97% of the island, it's beachfront.
Some of it is beachfront, some of it is beach view. You're just not going to get that in other places.
Well, and it makes sense to me why you start to focus on, well, what's going to be growing within San Juan. Like that's what's there that's stabilizing the current economy and the industries within San Juan. Because as an investor, that's what I care about. I want it to be stable currently. I'm not risk tolerant enough to invest in something that's not currently stable as far as a financial basis and a governmental basis, right? But if you see that there's a growth pattern available, then there's an appreciation that you can participate in over a long period of time. Now we're saying, opportunity zone, beachfront in a country that is going to become much more accessible to the US vacations. Because of the amount of investment and incentive the government is laying out, maybe I do want to buy some beachfront that's in the opportunity zone. And I want to spend 10 years holding on to it and developing a apartment building into a bed and breakfast.
Right. And here's the truth of the matter is, there is a lot, Puerto Rico is one of these places where there could be a beautifully maintained, wonderful building right next to something that's been vacant and completely dilapidating for the last 10 years.
Okay.
But as an investor, I see that as opportunity.
Yeah, I know it's a V-gentrification. That's what we're talking about, is the V-gentrification.
What does it take to take this other piece of property and bring it up to par and get it working, So, you have to look at things through that lens to be able to see the opportunity there. But there's so many different ways to make your money there that it became irresistible for me, right? And the fact that I did partner with people who I know, like, and trust and are on the island full time.
Yes.
So that makes a difference.
That makes a difference. It distinctly makes a difference. So we have about 5 minutes left. Do you want to talk a little bit about a project that's actually closed? So nobody can invest in it currently because it's actually closed. But it does give a pretty good example of something you chose to invest in because it had the advantages of the tax incentives. It was a team on the ground that you trusted and you felt like it fit in a growing path.
Right. And it's really easy for me to describe this because we've kind of already touched on it. I decided to invest there in a place called Miramar, which is about 15 to 20 minutes from the airport, and it is in the San Juan area. Mm-hmm. Miramar happens to be a more upscale historic district, and it's a 3-story multifamily that we're turning into a bed and breakfast. We're in the tax incentive program that's going to allow us to get 40% back years 3, 4, and 5. And we're actually still in the permitting process. We'll have 3 units up in about 2 weeks, and then we'll have the rest of it up. Hopefully, maybe by the end of the year, we'll see. And once again, this is an opportunity for me to partner with. One of my partners is a renovation specialist. So they're doing the renovation part of things. And I partnered with somebody who is also a short-term rental specialist. So the short-term rental specialist, obviously, when it's up and running, is going to be running the place. So there it is, Miramar. Yes.
Yep. Right. I'm showing how close it was. I showed the island. And then I'm showing how close it is to actually San Juan itself. It's really not even very far.
And here, Condado is a very popular place. Condado has all the very high-end Four-Season kind of hotels, and it's adjacent to Condado. Condado is a little more tourist centric. Miramar has kind of one street that's very progressive and has some hotels and things on it, but then kind of the rest of it is a little more residential, high-end residential, It's a beautiful area, and you can see the bay. You see that little bay between Miramar and Condado. You can see the bay from our roof. We're planning a lot of rooftop gatherings at our place.
Right.
Yeah.
Rooftop gatherings that might actually have a similar view where you can see the water in the bay.
Right. I mean, yeah. So that'll be great. You know, and there's a lot of places to walk to from the place that we've purchased. So yeah, so that is one of the I've also, you know, invested in another property with the same partners. We really enjoy working with each other, and so we're going to be closing on that hopefully in the next couple of weeks. I do want to hit on one thing because people always ask, what about the hurricanes?
Yes, let's talk about the hurricanes. Okay, last little bit.
Like first of all, I feel really blessed. Neither of our properties got, you know, any kind of damage in the hurricanes. And I want to say that our properties are very old. And in Puerto Rico, you build with concrete. So these properties have withstood Maria. They've withstood many hurricanes. So I'm like, okay, no worries, you know.
Well, it was actually the other side of the island had the harder time.
The other side of the island.
That's you were mentioning that, you know, even though you're currently a smaller investor in the whole scope of the economy of San Juan, you and your partners.
My partners went out and brought water and tools and things to other people on the other side of the island. That's that moment when you go, oh yeah, I'm with the right partners. Like, you know, they put people first, and love that about them. And so we have the same, you know, ideology. One of my partners, though, I want to share his ideology. He's been on the island for, I think, about 10 years now. And he has a hurricane theory. He says that there's a super cycle. There's a new 5-year hurricane super cycle. And so he feels like investing in Puerto Rico has never been better than today. They've just had a hurricane, and that's the beginning of another cycle.
Another 5-year break where you can develop things with an anticipation of being ahead of the hurricane and any potential damage. And it sounds like San Juan has survived very well.
San Juan has survived very well. And like I said, there's other parts of the island, but I think those will come up online pretty quickly, especially with, I'm going to call it the new economy there, right? Because there's people bringing money there.
New economy, government is supporting it, encouraging it. They're offering all of these incentives, which is how we started. Okay. So Deborah, I feel like you have answered my question. Why would I, as a mainlander US citizen, want to invest in a territory like Puerto Rico? Why would I trust it? And I think that this has been solidly answered. I so appreciate it, because that was my challenge to you. You have met the challenge. Thank you. So Deborah, if people want to get a hold of you, whether it's just to ask you more questions about Puerto Rico, or to ask you where you're investing in Puerto Rico, or gee, what are you currently developing in the United States, which by the way, you also do, which we didn't touch on at all. Yes, I know. I'm surprised you look so fresh and lively today, given all that you have on your plate. People can get a hold of you at DeborahRazo.com.
You can get a hold of me at DeborahRazo.com. If you're a woman, I strongly where's that you look at reninspires.com. And if you're specifically interested in Puerto Rico, I have partnered with OZ Works, OZ Pros, and Rio Rico. We just put on an event to educate investors, because you've got to get educated in this, to educate investors last July. And we've just decided that we're going to do another event in Puerto Rico in January. So I think
in January. Perfect. And this podcast will probably go out by that time. So Deborah Razo, DeborahRazo, DeborahRazo.com, or WREN, WREN, which is the Women's Real Estate Investment Network.
Yeah.
And I love going to the WREN meetings. I am a WREN member, and I so appreciate, Deborah, you getting that up and running. You guys have multiple chapters now, not just the one you started. As if she doesn't do enough, invest in Puerto Rico, be a developer in the United States, and actually be the primary runner, founder, and oversight for a multi-chapter real estate investment network. So honey, you are amazing. Thank you for being on my show.
That support, you being one of them, and I really appreciate that. So thank you.
Very good. Thank you so much. This is Christina Suter on Real Estate Breakthrough. How to use real estate to break through to your financial freedom. You can see me on our podcast or YouTube, Roku TV, and I believe we're going to have an Amazon TV channel, which will be up and populated probably in the next 3 months. Good evening.